Welcome to the Magellan Network Show. This is episode number 349. This episode, I want to talk about something that we don't really talk a lot about in this industry, and we need to start talking a lot more about, which is the journey as an advisor when you just start out, trying to survive. You kind of doing it all, right? You're doing you're doing the review, the meetings, you're selling, you're doing paperwork, you're doing it all. The journey from that to really running a team and leading a team. So I want to talk to you guys about that and what I've observed and what I coach around in terms of doing it the best way possible. So before we can get that, for those you don't know, my name is Coach Joe Lucas, and for 32 years now, I've done nothing but coach financial advisors, over 2,500 engagements, tens of millions of dollars of profits, billions upon billions of dollars of additional assets. So you can just look me up and you can see what I'm all about. So what I want to talk about today, like I said, is really, what's the difference? And I'll say this, and I have a term which is I call it the accidental leader. Now, what do I mean by that? I think a lot of times advisors get stuck. They go from, they want to grow their business. They want to scale, and it's an often used word these days, right? They want to go from, 100,000 of top line to 500,000 to a million to 2 million. And, again, some people have, they want to keep it small and that's cool, but that's not everybody. So what does that journey look like? What does the journey from advisor to team leader look like? And this is where it gets challenging, right? Because if you make mistakes along the way, i.e. you fail, you'll start creating a belief that, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to deal. I don't have to manage people, right? I don't want to deal with that because you've never really thought about what does it take to really not manage people, but actually lead them. So let's talk about leadership first and what the domains are. It's what I teach. So I'm gonna give you guys like a little, I don't even call it like a little mini masterclass here, but I want to put some things on the board today that are incredibly important. So let's talk about domains first. So if you're going to be a great leader, guess who you lead first? Yourself, right? So in other words, if you don't have high standards, why should your team, right? If you've not laid out a vision, then what is your team? They just exist. They're just being tactical and going through their to-do list, right? There's no grand vision. All my great leaders understand in order to lead others, you must first have dominion over yourself. All right. Now, does that mean that you have to be the first one in the office and the last one out? No, I'm not saying that. That's what we pay people for. You know, you're the advisor, you're the leader. The goal is not to be the shopkeeper. That's what we hire for. Right? They're the shopkeeper, so we can do other things. But if you feel that, and this is like one of my litmus tests, could you go away for 2 or 3 weeks and feel confident your team can handle what's going on in your business? If the answer is no, then you got a real problem. You just do. So dominion over yourself first. Your standards first. So if you say, and here's a great example, and this happens like every January. Advisor wakes up January 1 and they declare to themselves, I'm going to be a better leader. I'm going to get my arms around my business. I'm going to hold my team accountable, right? And then they show up the first day of the new year and they put edicts out. Hey, we're going to have a team meeting every week. We're going to have a team meeting on Mondays at 9 o'clock every Monday. Come hell or high water, lock it in, right? 3 weeks into it, I've got to move the meeting. I've got a client. Clients can wait the hour. Don't tell your team it's immutable and then you bail on it, right? I literally have clients who run multi-million dollar teams and they will remote in on their vacation to sit in on their team meeting to show and demonstrate to their team their commitment. That's what technology is for, right? So you don't set a standard and then you don't abide by that standard. And I see that so often. And at some point, you know what happens? Your team tunes you out. They just don't buy it. They know you're full of it. Or they're like, well, I wonder how long this is going to last this time, right? So you don't have any leadership cred with them because you won't hold your own standard. So whatever, and I'm not talking about, they said, day in, day out, what time you come in or not. I'm not saying that for you. But if you're setting team meetings and you're blowing them off because you think you've got something more important to do, let me say this to you right now. We are not trauma surgeons. There's not, in my 32 years, I cannot think of one situation where we can blow off a team meeting unless you have a loved one who is headed to the hospital. Totally get that, right? Or a family crisis. Totally get that. But clients, that's in that team meeting. Let's say it's Monday at 9:00. That is in your calendar every week, recurring activity indefinitely. And it's absolutely sacred. Everybody get that? Incredibly important. What is the difference between leadership and management? Some of you are thinking about that. So here it is. Leadership is about influencing people to raise the level of performance because they understand how they fit into the overall mission of the team/business. Management is about carrots and sticks. Now, what do I mean by that? Hey, if you do this, here's a bonus, right? If you don't do this, you're going to get fired. And I'm putting it very bluntly. Now, does that mean that you shouldn't have bonuses for your team? No, I'm not saying that's a totally different animal. But a lot of you think, and this is the other real thing I run across. Well, Joe, I pay my people a lot of money. They should just know. Love that one. Like, are you serious? Do they read your mind? Right? Like, how do they know? If you don't communicate the mission, the standards, why do you think they're going to know it? And here's a great one. If I go to a leader and say, well, hey, what are you guys about? Oh, we're client centric, we're mission oriented, stuff like that. I'll sit there and say, okay, walk me through what those two things mean. Give me the details. And 90% of the people can't. Like, well, if you're saying you're mission focused, but you don't know what the hell the mission is, why do you think your team would? And client centric or client oriented. Well, what the heck does that mean? If I had your team on here right now, and I said, what are the standards around a client centric practice as you understand it? They'd be all over the place with it. Some of them probably wouldn't have any answers. It's a massive indictment. And this is stuff that's not taught in advisor school. That's why I call it the accidental leader. So here's some things. Number one, get yourself checked out in terms of what your standards are, how you're going to have dominion over you. Number two, walk your talk. So if you tell your team we're meeting, you meet. Number three, they need to know what the vision is and how important the mission is. And please don't tell me, well, we talked about that in January and now it's July. You reinforce that every team meeting. Next one. Do you know with absolute certainty where each member of your team wants to be professionally in 5 years? Very important question. And here's the question. Hey, where do you see yourself as it relates to this team in 5 years? I'm curious, right? Not complicated. You need to know what your people are thinking. So either A, you can then make plans, or B, they're thinking too small. You need to coach them up. Which brings the next piece. Every one of your direct reports, so whoever reports directly to you, and if they have their own direct reports, every month, a dedicated private 30-minute coaching session where you're offering them feedback. You're asking them and you ask them, hey, what do you want to learn next? How do we develop you? How do we make you more valuable to the team? This is a lot of things leaders don't do. They say, well, I pay these people a lot of money. Yeah, but if you're not investing in them, go back to my last episode when I talked about investing in yourself. We have a protocol here where, hey, each team member has a personal and professional development budget. It's part of their comp. It is discretionary. We get to, we have to approve how it's invested and what it's invested in. But we have that. And it could be, somebody's going to say, well, Joe, how do you determine that? I mean, if I had to swag it, I'm going to tell you it's 2.5% to 5% of their salary. Simple, keep it simple. So if I've got a $100,000 chair, the investment budget is going to be $2,500 to $5,000. And somebody's saying like, "Oh my god," like, "That's like, I got 5 people, that's another 20 grand." Yeah, and if you invest in your people and they're committed, you will get that back in spades forever. Most advisors don't think like that. So I'll ask the question, and this is the other part. This is like a fundamental question. Do you look at your people as an investment or a cost to your business? So for every one of us, by the way, your people, if you look at your P&L, I'll guarantee you that the biggest P&L line item you have on the cost side, we'll use that as a term for a moment, are going to be your people. And look, and you all know this if you've been out there in the marketplace for talent. The price for talent is, I mean, far outstripping inflation. It's crazy. There's a real balance. I mean, right now, when I talk to my Empire guys, which are my top mastermind people, we talk about this in every meeting. Absolutely, and I'm going to use this term: the absolute battle for talent. It's a battle, and you got to make sure people are comped properly, and that's gonna. I'm not going to get into that. There's plenty. You can go to Kixis and Schwab and Phil. They all have compensation studies, so you see what it looks like. But that's not enough. You also have to be investing in your people, like I just said, to make them better. Now, somebody's saying, well, Joe, if I do that, then they're going to want to leave. I said, well, look, that is the risk you run, but I'll tell you what, if you've brought in the right people to begin with, yes, comp is important, but for a lot of people, it's not the most important. I mean, it's up there. I'm not gonna be naive and tell you it doesn't matter. But I know advisors who have paid their people very well and they still lose them. Why? Culture's not right. They don't feel valued. They don't feel heard, right? Which goes to the next thing of leadership. What is your culture? What is your ethos as a team, right? Like, what are you about? In EOS, they would call it core values. What are your core values? And that's critically important. Like, what's the code? How do you treat each other? How do you operate inside of the unit? Whether it's you and one part-time shared, some of you are going, well, Joe, I only have a part-time shared assistant. Doesn't matter. You still lead. Whether you have a third share of a human being, for lack of a better term, or you have an organization of 100, doesn't matter. These are the same rules. Okay. If you're frustrated with your people, look in the mirror. Because I mean, and now we're going to get into a couple things real quick. When I have a client come to me and they start when I look at our agendas, like when I do my personal coaching with my people, we always put an agenda builder out. And when I get them back, I see what we're going to talk about, which is great. And if I see the same thing a couple of months in a row, like my team, my people, or this person, that person, whatever, um, I've got a very important. So I've got one question for them, and I'm going to give you the question. And I want you to ask yourself this question, and I want you to think about your team, and I want you to think about every person on that team individually for a moment. Here's the question: knowing what you know today about that person's performance and who they are, if you can go back in time, would you hire them again? Did everybody get that? If you struggle with a quick yes, just a matter of time before you separate. They're going to separate with you, or you're going to separate with them. There'll be a threshold moment, and then that's that. It never fails. Never fails. That's my question to all my leaders. When we start talking about people, like I do that, that's one of the first things I do when I'm going to get engaged by a team, which is kind of where I specialize in these days. I'll sit with the leader confidentially, and I'll get the org. And hey, man, send me your org chart. And in your org chart, tell me what they do and how long they've been there. And we'll sit on a Zoom, just them and I'll go person by person. Tell me about this person. Okay, know what you know about them today. Would you hire them again? When I on the Zoom see that uncomfortableness or that hesitation, I know the answer. They just won't say it out loud. And I say it for them. You don't know what your answer is? No, you wouldn't. You're just afraid to say it. And they finally admit it. I said, great. So here's the deal, man. Flat out, we just got to figure out how to separate and bring in a rock star. You cannot build an A-level business with B players or C players, right? You just can't. It doesn't work. So we go through that. And it's not like I'm not being harsh, but they're not happy and the leader's not happy. It's like nobody's happy. And this is what I tell everybody. And so for some of you like did this exercise and you're like, yeah, I got a couple no's, but I feel bad. Let me say this to you all right now. There are so many job openings in this industry. I will guarantee you that if they are just a C player, they will have a job within 48 hours if they want one. Because that is the battle for talent in our space. So I let all my clients say, don't feel bad about, separating. If you want to stroke them a check, your severance to make yourself to kind of soothe your own soul, fine, do it. But the sooner you do it, the better, because you're not going to coach them up. They're not evolving. They never should have been hired, and you're frustrated, and they're just hanging out. You can't double your business with that. I don't care who you are. There's no coaching program. There's no management. It's just not. It's like quarterbacks. Everybody has a ceiling. You have and for sports, you have your journeyman person who can spot start and be there then you got the quarterback to maybe get a winning record. Then you got the quarterback and maybe get you in the playoffs. But it's the quarterback can get you in the playoffs, but the quarterback can win a Super Bowl. There's a massive gap there. You need to surround yourself with Super Bowl caliber people. And I'll say this, they are in today's marketplace. And again, I'll use this term. They are expensive. There's a not a theory, there's a rule in tech, and it was brought out in X is Easier than 2X and The Science of Scaling, those books. A lot of organizations will have a budget for a function, right? People budget, money. And they have a choice. They can spread that budget out over 2 to 3 B minus players, right? Or they can go hire one A plus rock star. They will tell you that you are better off hiring the one plus rock star than 3 B players. The rock star will get it done. And so many advisors, and look, it's just the nature of the beast, will think they can get super talent for $50K this year in a year. Like, no, not going to happen. Not anymore. Right. And the reality is in this space right now, the biggest impediment to growth is not opportunity, it's bandwidth, it's capacity, it's people. I know what some of you thinking, AI. Yeah, I think AI will make you. Do I think that if you totally integrate AI into your practice, if you're able to, will that buy you some more time and bandwidth, or maybe you can save a seat or two on the administrative front over the next 3 to 5 years? Yeah, I truly believe that. I'm anticipating that. So that would be great. That means instead of another $75,000 seat, we can use technology to push that $75,000 seat out until we hit the next level of growth, which I think is great for P&Ls, right? But don't get caught up in if you don't like your team, well, look at them, what I always say is, well, I don't like my people. I go, well, who hired them and who leads them? Oh, that's you. Now that's where the issue is. Now your people, man, they're victims of you. Most human beings / advisors don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. So here's what I want you to think about before I wrap this up. I would love you to do that question test with all your people. And be honest, I'm not saying you have to go write it on LinkedIn or anything. Just know that, hey, I wouldn't hire this person again. I just wouldn't. So now you just got to figure out how to solve that, right? And I'll say this: all my best clients, and I truly mean this. All my best clients are like it's a never ending. We're always running LinkedIn ads, right? We're always running LinkedIn ads. We're always running Indeed ads. We're doing those things, right? It's super important because bottom line is we need to always be hunting for talent, right? And a lot of my clients, especially the large organizations today, you know what we're doing? We're actually going into the colleges and doing internships and part-time in our last semester. And we're going to develop on organically. Now that's a longer play, obviously, and I equate to sports 'cause that's kinda how I operate. So, bringing somebody out of college into a chair, right? Let's say a staff admin chair. It's like developmental player. They're not gonna start immediately. You gotta develop them, right? They're not plug and play, but they're valuable long term for the because you get to indoctrinate them in your culture, your standards. There's a lot of pros to doing that, and economically, they tend to quote unquote cost less. But you have a longer ramp, and then you got to make sure that you have the capabilities to train and develop. Second option is free agency, just like sports. Hey, we're so close. We're one player away from being really good. Okay, we're gonna go get that player. So we're going to marketplace, and whatever the math is to get them, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get the rock star, the A plus player. That's the way you build your teams. That's the way you lead them. Hope this made sense. I want to thank you all for watching and listening to this episode. Like today's video. Make sure to subscribe to whether you're doing this on our YouTube channel or our podcast. This episode made any sense to you, forward it to a colleague. We'd love to get more distribution. And if you want to know more about what we do, just go to MagellanNetwork.net. And I'll see you again next week in next week's episode.